Hello, all you wonderful and beautiful people. I am super stoked today to be bringing you some footage of an actual honest-to-God race. I'm also stoked because I got my second dose of the Moderna vaccine yesterday and no side effects. So heck yeah, rock on. So what I'm going to be bringing you today is some race breakdown and some commentary for a P123 race that took place earlier this week in April of 2021. If you happen to be watching this later on, put some context around it. We, in the Pacific Northwest, in the Washington area, we've just gone into what's called Phase 3 not too long ago, which means we can, in fact, have races up to 30 people per field. And, of course, there's all sorts of precautions we got to take. And huge shout out to the organizers and to our USAC coordinators. They all did a great job of making sure we were all safe throughout the whole registration process and check-in and exit and all that stuff. So huge shout out to them. Another huge shout out to all the racers that were out here. 30 of us in this field. It was a restricted field size. Most of these folks haven't raced in 14 months. Maybe some of them haven't even raced in 16, 18, 20 months. And I'm happy to say there was not one single wreck in our field. I think the other fields had some wrecks, but nothing major. Just a couple people going into the dirt. Okay, so I'm going to bring you a little bit of different content today. This is a race breakdown. You've seen this course before if you've watched any of my other race breakdowns. This is the Pacific Raceways course. Tonight we're doing hill night. There's two types of hill nights. There's regular hill night, and then there's Oh Holy Hell hill night, and that's when we go the opposite direction. So this descent we're about to do, you can easily do over 50 miles an hour on this descent. Keep an eye on this guy on my right, by the way. You see all that squirreliness? Oh my God, that was... Yeah, he was all over the place all night. So I tried not to be behind him, but somehow I magically got next to him or behind him frequently. Anyway, so there's two versions of this hill night. This is the lesser of the two evil hill nights, and that's because the hill we go up after we're done this descent is longer and therefore less steep. But it's still steep. You still hit gradients of up to 10% in some areas and average around 7%. So it's still got some bite to it, but it's not very long. And what that means is that generally the field sticks together. When we flip the course the other way, the field does not stick together when you're doing 15 to 18% for any length of time, especially in multiple laps, you're going to lose people. All right, so why is this different? I'm sure a lot of you that are watching this are probably also watching people like NorCal Cycling's video race breakdowns, and I'm sure you've seen some of the Williams brothers on Nation's #1 Beats. Those guys are amazing. Huge respect to both of their channels. We're both subscribers, the Boogeyman and I, and we love their channels. But one of the things you won't see in this that you see in theirs are these long, stretched out crits. And this is, for lack of a better term, it's a big crit. It's a small circuit race or big crit. You see the long, stretched out stuff on their races, even if you look at like Chris Tully's channel, which is kind of a fun and amusing one, and you see the Austin Driveway series. You see these long stretched out lines and you see fast pace. Well, reality is this race here is fast too. We averaged 26.5 miles an hour over the course of the evening, which while that doesn't sound that fast, factor in the hill and factor in the fact that right here as we come into this false flat after the hill, there's a 17 mile an hour headwind. And if you look at where the headwind's coming from, we never actually get the chance to benefit from a tailwind except for 12 feet. As we're about to approach the downhill. So not a big help. So this was a fast race. But one thing you're noticing, especially with only 30 people in the crowd, is there's not large teams. And when you see the kind of racing that you see from NorCal and the Williams brothers, you're going to see larger teams, 8, 9 people teams. And they can kind of get a good line going and stretch out and focus on a team train, if you will, a team grouping. Of course, they got to fight for that, but they still do it, and they still have these long lead outs, and they have these long straight races. I'm willing to bet most of you don't have races like that. And if you've done a local crit, not a national level crit, in the P123s, undoubtedly a lot of the people that are there are of similar strength, and they may not have the huge teams, and they may not have the organization necessary to line up these straight lines and straight trains of teams. So instead, you see this kind of bunching up and then spreading out and then bunching up and then spreading out. And this is what I kind of want to talk about because really, let's face it, the vast majority of us, this is what we see. and when there's 80 people in a crit, we still see this. Now we see people getting shelled, of course, over time. I don't think anybody actually got shelled from this lap. I think everybody was pretty fit coming into this. We've had 14 months to train. All right, so what we see though is, if you're watching my camera here, the Boogeyman does make an appearance several times and actually does pretty well in this race. I have a teammate on my left there in the blue and the black, past the green and the black here. And it's just the two of us on our team. And of course, I'm happily supporting my own kid because I would be a terrible parent if I didn't. So yeah, you are going to see the lines form up a little bit here and there. But what you're going to typically find in a group like this is that you don't have that strong team organization, especially when, I think the biggest team here had maybe 4 or 5 riders on it. And then the rest of us were 2 people here, 1 person there. You're not going to have a lot of that. So you need to do a couple things. You need to mark individuals as people that you can safely ride behind or with or cooperate with. You need to mark people that you're going to avoid. And I already pointed out the one guy in the Apex kit, not the guy on my left. He's cool. But there was one guy in here that was just all over the place. So you want to avoid folks like that. You want to mark them early. You may misjudge, but that's the nature of racing. You make a decision, you stick with it throughout the course of the race, and you do your best. You find teams. Notice the pale green jersey in front of me. They've got 3 guys lined up here. They're not doing a lot of team coordination. This particular team happens to be very testosterone driven, so every one of them wants to win, and it's not an issue of working for one another. So you can't really expect a lot of team structure and organization out of that. But you definitely know who you want to stick with and who you want to avoid. And those decisions get made pretty early. So that's the first thing. Second thing, know the course. I know the course like the back of my hand. There were a couple folks that have, in this pack, even as 1, 2, 3s or pros, have never raced this course before. And, you're at a disadvantage. There are videos of this course. There are, of course, Strava files of this course. But the other thing is, which I found really interesting, is, we could get there as early as an hour beforehand and pre-ride the course. And there were really only about 5 or 6 of us pre-riding the hill section. Everybody else rode the flat section. I don't care if you do know the course like the back of your hand. Reality is you should ride the course. If you have the opportunity, ride the course. There was a divot. There's the Boogeyman right there. There's a divot on the downhill that wasn't there last season. The landscape changed a little bit, and some people got caught off by surprise on that. And in some cases, actually, one guy actually hit it hard enough that his seat post collapsed while he was racing. Still managed to finish, but you don't want that happening. Okay, so know the course, and the purpose of knowing the course is knowing how to do just what I did here. You want to be able to freely move up and back based on the needs at the moment. Now you notice I didn't do a whole lot of power to get up this hill, and it's real simple. There's some switchbacks on the way up, nothing too tight, no true like hairpins, but just some little cuts left and right. And if you know how to take the lines through there, you can take a relatively straight line and start at the back, carry your momentum, not even have to work, and magically find yourself towards the front of the pack. Now, unfortunately, I also marked that guy in front of me right then, just because he literally shifted into his little ring accidentally. Like, we're about to go into a heavy section here. Really, I don't think on a course like this you should be even changing your front chainring. So I do know that this guy in front of me, who's actually a junior, if he's not 17, he's just about to be 17. I know he's very strong, incredibly strong. So sitting on his wheel, frankly, letting him do a little bit of the work instead of me getting in front of him is perfectly fine. And you can see he's not really worried by that. Nobody really is. We got a huge side wind here. That person's going to have to work just as hard as the rest of us. And that's another point. Know your side winds, know your headwinds, know your tailwinds, know what you can do when you can do it. If you're the kind of person that can attack into a headwind and sustain that, that's awesome, because then the people that are behind you that are having to close the gap are having to match you watt for watt into that headwind. A side wind doesn't really support a breakaway very well, because a lot of people can get great rotational shelters. In other words, they can, the side wind's coming really hard from the right here. It's darn near 20 mile an hour side wind. And I can sit with somebody on my right, almost fully recover, and then just blast right past them. So we can do sort of a unorganized rotating pace line and easily catch somebody that is just hanging out there in the wind. Attacking on the downhill, probably not that smart either. I mean, in fact, there's not really a lot of place with this side wind that would be smart to attack. Now, if it was a west to east wind, and the GPS in the top left of the corner is oriented correctly, so we're heading due west right now. If it were a west to east headwind, it might be worthwhile attacking into that headwind. Again, if you're willing to put out the power necessary to sustain that. The reason that this type of attack right here isn't really going to stay away is just because, again, there's no benefit that they're getting that we don't get. Now, what I do here is I do try to bridge up, and I'll tell you exactly why. In this particular case, I'm working for the boogeyman, and there he goes. Notice I drop my power off, and I get swarmed by a couple riders. That's actually okay. What I was kind of hoping for here, we got the right mix of teams. Again, there's not a whole lot of big teams here, but we got the right mix of teams that I'm starting to open up a little bit of a gap here in front of me, hoping that the boogeyman can grab on with these other 5 guys and start to do a breakaway. But of course, the guys behind me start to recognize that. My hope was they wouldn't, and that team could get away. There'd be like a 6-person breakaway, and then the boogeyman would be fighting it out in a sprint in about 45 minutes. Unfortunately, it didn't happen, but that's one of the tactics I wanted to try. At the end of the day, for this type of race right here, you've really got to determine whether you are going to be the person that tries to get away on the hill and therefore form a breakaway, whether you're going to be the kind of person that actually tries to do a legit breakaway into the wind, or whether you're going to do a sprint and be a sprint finisher. You have to make that decision up, and I wouldn't encourage making that decision up the day of the race. You've really got to start thinking about that in advance. I think Mike Tyson said it best when he said something to the effect of, you may have the best plan in the world, but all your plans go out the window when you get punched in the face. And that's true. Like when you're racing, if you have a plan, that's cool, but the moment you start racing, sometimes that plan kind of goes out the window. But if you have ideas, like a primary plan, maybe a backup plan, you can work towards making those things, towards executing those plans. So my plan here was help the boogeyman get into a breakaway, if at all possible. I know the people that we want to be in a breakaway. Frankly, people that can hold long power and people that are motivated to let their teammates work for them in the back. So, maybe these guys in the green kit here, if one of their guys was in the breakaway, that'd be awesome. Obviously, I just cut forward quite a bit in the race here, back into the downhill section. But the plan, again, get boogeyman into a breakaway. If at all possible, he can hold high power for a long period of time. If he's got the right mix of people with him, then it comes down to a much reduced field sprint, and that's awesome. Secondary plan was focus on getting them up the hill faster, if at all possible. So, a lot of these guys are carrying a little extra weight, and this hill is, it's a death of 1,000 cuts kind of thing. And just FYI, that little move right there that guy made to get in front of me, perfectly legit move. I think some people might be freaked out if somebody is basically pushing you into the gravel to come over, but reality is that he took an opening that was there. I wasn't happy about it at the time, but the reality is that it was a totally legit move. So, with him being in front of me, it's my responsibility to watch my own front wheel. Okay, so again, breakaway tactics would be find the right people, hill climbing tactics. Let these guys that are going to die the death of 1,000 cuts, let them die, and make it harder every single time you climb it. Now, unfortunately, there were some lightweight guys on here too, and it was just the right combination of people that it's like, yeah, there wasn't really a way to escape on the hill. It just wasn't going to happen. At some point, when we all got to this false flat right here, it was kind of like the great equalizer. The people that had fallen a little bit off the back were able to catch back on because they had the benefit of no headwind. They were sitting in draft, and the people that had done well to climb to the front were now being hit with massive headwind. So it really was just badly placed. On any other given night, it's actually a pretty good way to get away is to use that hill to your advantage, but with that headwind coming right at us, it just didn't work. Okay, so in a moment here, I'm going to cut to our final lap. And I told you that, we wanted to execute some plans. Plan 1 was a breakaway. That didn't work. Plan 2 was a wearing down of the rest of the teams on the hill. That didn't work. So that leaves us very few options for Plan 3. What is Plan 3? Plan C. That is sprint for the win. Now, I am no sprinter, and I know what my job is. And my job is to cover breaks and make sure that the boogeyman ends up in the sprint, because he can sprint. He's got a 1,000-watt kick, and for a 50-kilogram dude, 1,000-watt kick, that's enough to take a sprint finish for sure. I don't have a 1,000-watt kick, and I'm a 64-kilogram dude, so I know what my place is, and that is when it comes time for a sprint, my job is to get the heck out of the way. I can't stress that enough. Listen, don't sprint for 30th place. Just don't do it. If you're not a sprinter and you haven't positioned yourself well and you're sprinting mid-pack, you're going to cause a wreck. I don't care if you're in the P123s or in the 4.5s. It doesn't matter. Do not sprint from mid-pack. If you're not a sprinter, get the heck out of the way. Or, surf the wheels as best as you can and see maybe you can use that to your advantage. But, a lot of times you see people trying to sprint mid-pack. I will say that didn't happen this time. The pack split pretty well, almost in half. So you had about 15 guys sprinting, and you had 15 guys sitting up and saying, okay, we're gonna chase for 16th place. And that actually made for a much safer environment overall. This is a huge, wide area that we have to work with, so there's plenty of room for you to take your own lane for sprinting. And since there's no, normally cycling traffic would be going both ways on this track, there's no bi-directional cycling tonight. It's, since everybody's going down the hills, that sprint area is just huge and wide open. Okay, so you're going to start seeing some people trying to move up for position, and that's great. This is exactly what you want to do. The boogeyman has already done just that. If you watch the footage as I was talking there a moment ago, you saw that he was using the advantage of that wind coming from the side. It was coming from our right. He got on the left and did almost no effort, and he's now all the way up there. As a matter of fact, you could just see his tail end there in the first small grouping of bikes. It's exactly where he needs to be. And frankly, as far as I'm concerned, my job is done. I'm not going to provide a lead out tonight for a couple reasons. First of all, I know there's going to be a lot of people up in that front mix, and I don't need to be part of that. The boogeyman can jump on somebody else's wheel, and frankly, me pulling 600 watts with a side wind is not going to be doing sufficient lead out for him when it really counts. So here, my job is to stay in contact with the group, maybe move up a little bit on the hill, but the boogeyman's job, if you're the sprinter, is to be up there in those first several wheels. And he knows who he's targeting. I won't actually mention it by name in case they're watching this video, and I don't want him to go, oh, that kid's tailing me, and he's going to be using me as a launching board. No, I don't want to tell people that. But he knows who he's supposed to be on into this final sprint to basically use them as a lead out, and he's working his way into that position. You got to burn matches to do that. I can't stress that enough. If you want to contend that sprint, you got to be up at that front. And to be up at the front, even in a night like this, what that means is you've really got to be, whatever you've saved, you better be using it now. Now is the time to use that. So get up there towards the front. I got plenty of juice left here. My goal is just to stay in contact, and I realize, oh, well, these guys are actually going kind of slow, so let me come around them. My teammate wasn't feeling it. He's actually a faster climber than I am for sure. But I think he mentioned he's doing like a Whole30 diet and wasn't 100% feeling it. So in any case, my job, get up here and start to recognize who's going to be the sprinter and who's not. So that's what I do. I move up to the front of the non-sprinters group. There's a couple people in that group in front of me that are not sprinters, and you can see it's kind of starting to this is what you're going to see. In a regular crit, in a non-national level, high quantity team race, you're going to see people like machining around until they get lined up to do this final kick. Now, we don't have the headwind anymore. We got a side wind here. My job is done. I'm out of the way. I know the guy in front of me has a sprint, is a sprinter. I know I don't, so I'm getting out of the way. We got about 200 meters to go. Actually, a little over 200. It's 200 once you kind of get right about here, and the sprinters are kicking it into full gear. Now, I don't want to lose. I don't want to lose any placement that I didn't have to. So I recognize there's a guy coming up on my left. I'm not going to sprint. Again, I'm not sprinting for pack placement, but I do want to keep the guy off my wheel, and that's what I do here. So I just carry enough speed that I can keep him off of me. All right, look at that wide sprint area. I bet you wish you had that in most of your races. Unfortunately, it doesn't happen that way. All right, thanks for stopping by. Got a little exit message here for you, and hope you guys are doing awesome and taking care of yourselves.
Okay, well, that was an interesting race. Imagine 30 guys who haven't raced in a year and a half to 2 years, racing very aggressively on Hill Night. Boogeyman did pretty well. I also finished, pack finish, but Boogeyman was in the lead group there, which is awesome. So hopefully you enjoyed the footage and the commentary, and watching just how squirrely the Pro 123s can be after 18 months of not racing. Thanks for stopping by. Hit that subscribe button and share the video with your friends. Thanks, everybody. Out.